Hey guys, it's Stephanie here at TheFlowerFanatic. I am really excited. I'm going to be planting my very first cutting garden this year. I have a big piece of land, a fairly large plot of land in the back of my yard that I've wanted to do a cutting garden for 4 years now. And the stars are aligning this year and I get to do it. But there's a lot of things that go into creating your first cutting garden, and a lot of things I didn't know when I first started researching seeds and trying to figure out what to buy, because we all know there's a million beautiful seeds out there and I want to buy all of them. And I kind of did at the beginning. I started buying all these seeds without doing any research, and then when I got into them and they started getting delivered, I started to realize, uh-oh, I don't think these are all going to do really well in my climate. So I'm trying to give you, here I'm just going to give you some tips on what will help you be most successful in creating your cutting garden. The first one is your climate. So this is what you need to do before you even buy your first seed. These are the things you need to do before you buy them. And then you won't be frustrated like me when you have your seeds come in and then you find out they're not going to grow here. So the first thing is find out your climate. So I live in a 6B zone. Here it is very, very hot. Last year we had temperatures of 103 degrees for like a month straight. But I also live in a desert and near the mountains, so it's high altitude. And the higher you are, the heat is more intense. And so there's somebody who could live in New Jersey with the same zone, 6B, but it's humid there and they're more at sea level, so the heat isn't as intense. So just because it says 6B does not mean that that flower is going to thrive in my climate like it will in New Jersey, if that makes sense. So these are really important things to know. And then, so find out what your climate you're in. And if you live in a humid area, that is really great for lots of plants. I wish I had more humidity. And then number 2 tip I would give you is decide what kind of cutting garden you want. Do you want it to be a lot of work, or do you want to plant things like perennials where they come back every single year and you don't have to reseed or replant? So perennials, for me, I'm going to use a mixture of perennials and annuals. So perennials come every single year. And then you have annuals, which you plant every single year. They die off in the cold winter. And then you have hardy annuals, which can handle frost, like late spring frost. And then tender annuals cannot. So that's important to know. So decide what kind of cutting garden you want. For me, I don't want to be slaving over annuals all summer long. I want some perennials and some annuals, just to make it a little easier on myself. And then also, this is important, is the time of year that these flowers are going to bloom. So you have spring blooming flowers. So anemones, they are one of my favorites, so look those up. Those are perennials. I want rows and rows of anemones. They're so cottage, they're so pretty. I love cone flowers, and they're also perennials, so I can just plant them there and I don't have to do much with them, and they'll come back every year. But I can never seem to find a spot in the flower bed that I want cone flowers. I want them to cut and bring inside. That's just how I like cone flowers. You have peonies. They're beautiful big bushes, and they take up quite a bit of space. So if you don't have a lot of space, peonies might not be the way to go. And then you can do lilac shrubs, you can do roses. So roses, they absolutely thrive in my area. And I'm so grateful because I can plant roses and they are so abundant from spring all the way to summer. So that is a great one to plant if you want flowers all summer long. And then there's also fall blooming anemones. And then you got your spring tulips, your snapdragons. So snapdragons here, they like the cooler temperatures. So when it's spring, they do well. When it's fall, they do well. When it gets heat, they kind of go dormant. So they would not be good in my climate if you're wanting flowers in the summertime. So those are a few things to think about. You're going to have to do your research on those. And so plan it to where you get flowers from spring, summer, and fall. So with your tender annuals, you don't put those in the ground until after my first frost, which is, to be on the safe side, I'm going to say June. And those won't start flowering until a few months, more like late summer. So you don't want to plant those if you want early summer flowers. Okay, and then you have your biennials, so foxglove and delphiniums. Those bloom every other year, and those are beautiful, and they like the cooler temperatures here also. But if you live in a climate that's 85 degrees or lower with humidity, they love it there. I envy those who have that kind of climate. but I do love where I live because I get roses. So there's, you know, the good and the bad in every climate, I feel like. And then the last thing is have fun. Sometimes plants that shouldn't do well, do well. Sometimes you can't predict it, so it's all trial and error. So if you're worried about it, you're stressing out about it, sometimes you have to learn, and some flowers will really surprise you, and then some just might be flops, and that's okay, and you'll know next year not to plant those. So I have some seeds here. I just want to show you what I bought. Okay, so I bought all of these seeds thinking I'm just going to throw them in my cutting garden in the full sun, not knowing that, no, that's not how it works. They're not going to do well. A lot of them aren't going to do well in the full sun. So here's an example of aster. This Tower Comios aster is beautiful. I wish I had all these pictures for you. But right here, if you look on the back, it will say put it in full sun. That's not going to work in my climate. I have to put it in part shade. So I have a lot hotter heat. So if I put it in my cutting garden where it gets morning sun until about 2 and gets that afternoon hot heat, so the heat is hotter in the afternoon. If it's shaded, it will get plenty of sun just because the heat is hotter. But just because it says sun doesn't mean I can plant it full sun here. So I'll put it in the part shade. Anyways, I'm going to give you a few examples of what flowers are going to do really well in the heat, just to get you started. And these tend to be no-fail plants. So I have cosmos. Cosmos do so well here. Sorry, I'll get you a little bit closer. And they love the sun. And cosmos are awesome because they are such abundant bloomers once they start blooming that you can just cut them, and then they'll come again, cut, and then cut again. And then, so I have amaranth is also a leafy, beautiful leafy that will give a nice texture in my bouquets, and it likes the heat. And then zinnias. Zinnias love the heat, and they do so well here. Roses I'm going to use as a perennial. And then you got your dianthus, which is a heat-loving one. And artemisia does really well, so I have some artemisia. So make sure you buy a variety of textures, and those will make your bouquet so beautiful. And so this is just, I hope this helps you on when you're looking and thinking, what kind of seeds, where do I begin? If you look online, you can research them, and they'll tell you if they're heat tolerant or not. And then snapdragons are another example where they go dormant in the hot, hot heat and they stop growing, but they do really well when it's cooler temperatures. But in the cooler temperatures, I can put them in full sun just because it's cooler. But then when it gets hot, they kind of just like, they're just like sleeping until it gets cool again, and then all of a sudden they'll come. So just basically do your research, have fun. I cannot wait to grow my first cutting garden. I'm gonna post the process all the way from spring until fall. I'll show you how I put it together, and I'm going to share some tips along the way, what I'm learning, and it's going to be so fun. I know that I'm going to have some failures just because that's what happens when you're new and you're experimenting with new seeds, but I am building my greenhouse right now for this specific reason. That's also going to be on YouTube, and can't wait to start growing my seeds in the end of February, beginning of March. So anyways, I hope this was helpful. If you have any other questions, comment down below. And let's get seed planting. I've bought way, way too many. Okay, we'll talk to you later. Bye.